You got anything that's real?
My boobs.
Okay, listen, hear me out. You need to be prepared for what's coming. The proverbial big one is hitting soon, and I'm not gonna stand idly by while the rest of you get ganked while you're eating Cool Ranch Doritos, objectively the only worthwhile flavor of Dorito. Now, I don't have a textbook or nothing, mind you, on account of the fact that books lie, but I got the next best thing to ease you into the reality that there's some heavy shit coming our way. And that's 15 seasons, 320 episodes of a dark fantasy non-fiction CW program that mostly gets it right. Let's get something straight. This isn't a review. This ain't filler content. It's a guide. You're gonna learn how to face the impending hardships that are... What was that? It was nothing. That was a test. I tricked you. Here's the deal. We're gonna go down the line examining every single episode of the show, and I'm gonna talk over it, explaining its significance and content until one of 5 things happens. 1, my sub count gets so low that I feel it necessary to abandon this format. 2, I lose motivation to continue doing this, as already it seems like I'm exerting more energy than normal. 3, content IDs. 4, I stop wanting to do it because of low view counts. And 5, content IDs. We can get some preliminary info out of the way in episode 1, so it may run a little longer. History lesson. In 2003, the WB began airing a show called Tarzan, in which the characters from the Edgar Rice Burroughs novel were transplanted from a series that tries to justify imperialism with science into a modern-day police procedural. I don't know for certain that's what the promo makes it look like, but I didn't watch it. Nobody did, which is why it was rightfully cancelled after 8 episodes. 7 more episodes than the show's creator, Eric Kripke, had envisioned. All he wanted was to be in the business proper. He wanted to create, and this was the opportunity he was given. Thankfully, he was given another opportunity to prove himself when a script he wrote would be picked up and made into a moving picture called Boogeyman, which I believe is about the Boogeyman. You may have seen it on UMD. It wasn't good, and it was called such things as A Waste, and a horror film whose only scare is that it was made at all. While Kripke was participating in these failures, for years he had been formulating his idea for an anthology series revolving around urban legends and American folklore. It had become a personal obsession, an idea that continued to take shape as he pitched it numerous times.
Mostly the things I remember were presenting things to the studio and then having them thrown out entirely.
They didn't even need to look outside their own network for their leads, pulling in Jensen Ackles, who was on Smallville at the time, and Jared Padalecki, who was on Gilmore Girls at the time. Though there were changes, they would maintain the distinctly American core concept of a mythic road trip spent murdering monsters pulled from small-town tall tales. So naturally they decide to film it in Canada and style it after Japanese horror films, like The Grudge, The Eye, and The Ring. Changes and tweaks to the show and its mythology would be made up until it was filming. Characters were swapped around, their significance was changed around, and the plan was always to have a Monster of the Week type show akin to X-Files, where the two would guide us to the monster, fight the monster, look into each other's eyes for a while, and then get back on the road. Even in the pilot episode, the X-Files DNA is pretty apparent.
It's a universal invariant!
Not in this zip code. What the? Agent Mulder? Agent Scully?
Which is not all that surprising, as the first 2 episodes were directed by David Nutter, who directed a number of great X-Files episodes. Pretty early on, the crew felt that the duo had enough chemistry to warrant giving them, character. So maybe the monster hunting could be a supplement to some familial drama and humor. So they were rewritten as estranged brothers. The details of their background were also swapped around. Initially, the dichotomy in their characters arose from the idea that Sam did not yet believe in the supernatural. This was changed to have both of them being raised well aware of the supernatural. Also, they had mapped out a 3-season series, which I guess they did make. They made 3 seasons like 5 times. The pilot episode establishes the first season's main arc and gives us a look at the template it often uses for Monster of the Week episodes, which will dwindle in frequency as the series continues. Don't get too used to that, and don't get too used to them having a cinematographer. Season 1 looks downright beautiful and atmospheric in comparison to the sterile studio wasteland it becomes later. Anyway, Lawrence, Kansas, 1983. Sam and Dean are little beans, and the Winchesters as a whole seem like one perfectly functioning little nuclear family. They've even got a dad. That's a tough thing to nail down. They're tricky sumbitches. During the night, Mary Winchester finds a dark figure looming over Sam's crib. If I didn't make it clear, this one is Sam, and this one is Dean. One's bookish, the other is roguish, and very straight. Sam's hair gets incrementally better as the series goes, but you're just gonna have to tough it out for a good while. Back to Sam's bedroom, their father, John, finds Mary affixed to the ceiling in flames, causing John to utter a phrase you will hear in the recap at the beginning of every episode this season.
Take your brother outside as fast as you can. Don't look back.
In present day 2005, a 23-year-old Sam and his girlfriend Jessica prepare for a Halloween party. Admittedly, this is a really off-putting intro to our characters, as out of context it could be any scene from one of the network's other programs. Thankfully, Dean shows up unannounced to drag Sam back into the family business, a motto for the show that isn't spoken until the next episode, so forget about that. In the years since their mother's mysterious death, their father became an obsessive nomadic hunter of the supernatural, eventually roping young Sam and Dean into this vengeance-fueled crusade to find the creature responsible, training them to deal with all manner of creatures that lurk in the dark. At a certain point, Sam defected from the family to pursue an education and hasn't been in contact with them for a couple years.
And you're gonna knock him dead on Monday, and you're gonna get that full ride. I know it.
What would I do without you?
That is until Dean shows up to ask Sam for help tracking down their father, who has gone missing while out on a hunt. Seeing as Sam has an interview for a law school on Monday, he agrees to help Dean on the condition that he make it back in time for that. This is also mostly expressed in the stairwell scene, which I can't even pay attention to because I'm still so upset by how much this show used to have a distinct visual style. And rewatching, these little bits of low-tech puzzle solving are really quaint.
You know there's EVP on that? Not bad, Sam.
You really don't get a lot of these later on, when much of the research stages of a hunt can be circumvented by having an endless repository of supernatural lore. But we got like half a series before we get there. The beginning doesn't display the greatest footing. There are some stumbles in how the show decides to explain its world.
But still, the way we grew up after Mom was killed, and Dad's obsession to find the thing that killed her. But we still haven't found the damn thing. So we kill everything.
Did you like write the synopsis into the script? It's also very clear the production has this uneasy alliance with the two audiences it's trying to appeal to, but I think it's pretty apparent that these two are fun to watch together. The way their personalities clash and the brotherly squabbles they get into, it's very entertaining. Like this iconic scene where Sam gives Dean shit for his taste in dad metal, though this scene would probably work better if that Metallica tape played Metallica.
Metallica? Sorry, I can't hear you. The music's too loud.
The only downside being then I'd have to listen to Metallica. The playful back and forth between the two is at its best in the first era of the show, which is seasons 1 through 5. Fans often refer to that as the Kripke era, when the show's creator was the showrunner. I like to think of it as the TV show era, because it was when it most felt like a TV show. After that, they alternatively hate each other, feel nothing for each other, or almost kiss depending on the episode.
Howdy, Sam.
But lots of quotables in the first episode paved the way for a lot of slogan t-shirts and various merch.
Jerk. Bitch. House rules, Sammy. Driver picks the music. Shotgun shuts his cake hole.
There's some shaky acting in the beginning as well, also in the rest of the series, but that can come and go, and this episode included has at least a scene or two when they can stretch their acting legs and more artfully lay out who their characters are. The argument between the two of them on the bridge really cements the ideological divide between them, with Dean, ever daddy's faithful little soldier, completely bewildered why Sam would even want to attempt something resembling a normal life, knowing what he knows, and Sam feeling robbed of the opportunity to have a childhood and adolescence and now adulthood in the wake of their mother's murder, whom he didn't exactly get to build a relationship with. While searching for their father, the two begin to piece together the hunt that he's left unfinished. David, where are you What are you doing in this news article, David? You're not in this episode. You're a person that's real, which concerns a woman in white, a hitchhiking ghost that lures men into infidelity and kills them. Most countries have some variation of this legend. In Mexico, you have La Llorona. In Italy, you got Mamma Mia Cook a Pizza. But this is a very modernized, sexy interpretation. And in the US, you can find several legends of an eerie, terrifying white lady. You know, they're usually calling the police on people and refusing to wear a mask. You got the Silk Lady of Madisonville, Louisiana, the White Lady of Wapsie in Altoona, Pennsylvania, Resurrection Mary in Chicago, Illinois. The list goes on, and most of these stories concern a woman who suffered some great loss and killed herself out of grief. In this case, she was so distraught by her husband's cheating that she drowned her children and then jumped off a bridge. The husband seems to be holding up just fine though. Sounds like it's all water under the... Oh!
You smart ass.
It's very American, though stylistically a relic of that wave of American remakes of Asian horror films, with the wet-looking black hair and the jittery, almost glitch-like movements. It's very of its time. The first handful of episodes are probably the purest example of what makes the premise great as a procedural. Sam and Dean aren't ex-cops or ex-military. They're two big kids that stumble their way through an investigation, impersonating law enforcement, breaking into places, using homemade ghost hunting tools.
Yeah, I know what an EMF meter is, but why does that one look like a busted up Walkman?
Because that's what I made it out of.
Surviving on microwavable gas station food they could only afford through credit card scams. A lot of the time they just get lucky. Like their initial play in the first episode doesn't even work out. They get pegged as imposters by the local PD. There's a lot of failure, and I think that's really endearing. It makes things less predictable and more dangerous. And you know, over the course of 15 seasons, this isn't something I think can last just mathematically. Dean is arrested while Sam just bails to continue working the case. The police then find their father's hotel room, replete with all manner of red string conspiracy wackiness covering the walls, and his journal, which is very concerning to Dean as he knows his father never goes anywhere without it. This journal acts as a sort of quest log that the boys use to find further cases and hopefully more clues to their father's whereabouts. It's, in retrospect, an incredibly flimsy way to keep the show procedural for a while, and they use similar ideas even into the later seasons of quite literally taking a break from the main plot to work a case, you know, blowing off some steam by completing a side quest. But I think that is when the show works best, when it's not beholden to advancing 20 other plot lines as well. This is not to say that its lore is all bad, but the two manage to defeat the ghost by forcing her back into her home to confront her crimes, where she explodes into an incredibly psychedelic, wacky visual effect that is never really repeated in the series. This sequence is so fucking weird, and we never see anything like that again, which is kind of a shame. Despite Dean's passive guilting, Sam is still dead set on making his interview, and has Dean drive him home. The two share a moment reflecting on how great a team they made, and were circumstances different, they might just drive on out of here into the sunset on the road trip of a lifetime, saving people, hunting. Oh, Jessica's dead, just like their mom. So without a girlfriend, Sam has no other reason to pursue his own life goals, and thus begins the next 15 years of his life in a car with this stinky boy. Goodbye, law school. Goodbye, this guy. May you live on in the opening recap. This is by no means the strongest episode of the season, but it's nice revisiting where it all began. It's so full of promise and potential, and there are ideas they don't return to. You can see the format being ironed out. It's not a particularly inspired hunt either, but that also gets sidelined by introducing a lot of the premise. I do like the episodes that revolve around ghosts because they usually have the strongest mystery element to them. It's invariably in part a murder investigation as well. This first one doesn't even fully show off a lot of the mainstays of ghost lore, like they don't use salt circles or burn anyone's remains. In one scene, Dean just shoots the ghost with regular person bullets, and that does seem to have some kind of repellent effect on her, which I don't give them shit for. I kind of always liked that scene because they're both confused as to why that would work at all.
What were you thinking, shooting Casper in the face, you freak?
Hey, saved your ass.
I guess, for the record, I don't think this is like highbrow television here. I know this show isn't Twin Peaks or The Sopranos or even X-Files. There are episodes and stretches of episodes that I think are downright awful, but there is this plucky charm to it, and a number of episodes that are incredibly inventive and entertaining and emotional even. I think that's why I thought it would be more interesting to explore it than the other shows I just mentioned, because they're like just really good. Like, I can't imagine I would have all that varied an opinion on X-Files until we got to the point where the two leads leave, and even then I thought it was a lot of fun. That's a good show. You go watch X-Files instead of this.
Just let me put something on.
No, I wouldn't dream of it. Seriously.
What I said earlier about Mom and Dad, I'm sorry.
No chick flick moments.
Mom's gone. And she isn't coming back.
You talking like misdemeanor kind of trouble or squeal like a pig trouble?